Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are taking on a concept that a lot of people, I think, mistakenly wear as a badge of honor, but which our sources reveal is actually one of the most, well, perilous psychological states, perfectionism.
Right.
We're going to try and move past that glossy surface of just trying hard to explore the true and often pretty toxic psychological structure that's going on underneath.
And our mission for this deep dive is really to give you a genuine shortcut to understanding it. We need to dissect the fundamental wound that fuels perfectionism.
Right.
And then, and this is the crucial part, explain why high achievement, the exact solution the perfectionist is chasing, is the absolute wrong tool for the job.
Okay, let's jump right in with that, the core definition. If it isn't just healthy ambition, what exactly is the mechanism at play here?
At its absolute foundation, perfectionism is, it's a deeply ingrained coping style.
A coping style.
Yeah, and it's rooted in this core, really devastating belief that just says, I'm not enough.
Well,
there's this internalized, profound sense of being flawed or defective or just, inherently unlovable. And that shame that leads to this powerful, desperate drive not to be imperfect.
Or, I guess, to conceal any sign of imperfection?
Exactly, to hide it.
So the high performance we see is really just the means to an end.
Precisely. The ultimate goal of all that striving, all that concealment, is this fantasy. It's the fantasy that if I am perfect, then I will finally become acceptable.
I'll be loved.
I will be loved,
Oh.
and I will gain the worth I feel like I'm missing. The performance, it's just a highly complex psychological suit of armor.
That makes the stakes feel incredibly high. So if this all starts with that core sense of inadequacy, I mean, where does that feeling come from? It can't just materialize out of thin air.
No, it doesn't. We look at the developmental origins, and we draw heavily from attachment literature and the self-theory work of Hewitt.
Okay, wait, let's unpack those terms a bit for everyone. When we talk about Hewitt and attachment theory, what's the main thing we need to get, and what does asynchrony actually look like in real life?
Certainly. So Hewitt's self-theory, it emphasizes that our early relationships are just crucial for building a cohesive sense of self-worth.
Okay.
If the environment is attuned, the child learns they are valued simply for existing.
Yeah.
Asynchrony or non-attunement just means there was a profound mismatch between the child's basic emotional needs.
The need for belonging, acceptance.
That's all of that.
Yeah.
A mismatch between those needs and what the environment could actually provide. It's often not about, outright abuse.
It's more subtle.
Much more subtle. It's about timing and focus.
Yeah.
Maybe the parent only noticed or rewarded the child's, say, academic successes, but dismissed their emotional struggles. So the message the child gets isn't you are inherently valuable. It's more like you are valuable when you are performing.
And the child just internalizes that lack of unconditional worth. So the lesson they take away is both devastating and, from their point of view, completely logical.
Yes. The child's brain comes up with this really powerful takeaway. I must be more than I am right now to get what I need.
Right. If I can just be more impressive.
Or show that I'm less imperfect, maybe the world will finally support me, maybe my needs will get met.
And that's the foundation of what the sources call this elegant childlike solution.
That's it. If I am, or if I just appear perfect, then I'll be acceptable, I'll belong, and I will have worth. It solves the problem.
And we should probably emphasize that this looks different for different people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The expression is idiosyncratic. While some perfectionists, they aggressively strive and drive, for many others, the fear of failure is so catastrophic. It just results in massive procrastination.
Oh, total paralysis.
Total paralysis. The stakes are just too high to risk a failure, so they do nothing at all.
That distinction is so important. But let's go deeper into the kind of the day-to-day emotional reality. What is the perfectionist's internal life really like?
I mean, we are talking about an internal experience that is abusive. It's harsh. It's relentlessly critical. We call this the self-relational component.
The self-relational component.
Yeah. We all have a style of relating to other people. Some are kind, some are distant. Perfectionists have this defining and often cruel style of relating to themselves.
And it's all captured in that inner dialogue.
That relentless inner dialogue. It's a constant state of self-evaluation, always anticipating the worst outcome, and then this post-facto criticism even when things go well.
It's that voice in your head.
Yes.
Yeah.
The one that's running a constant commentary. Why did I say that? I can't believe I was so stupid. That presentation, it wasn't good enough.
Anyone could have done that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's an analogy from the literature that I think really hits home. If you use that same harsh, critical, devaluing dialogue with your spouse or your child. I mean, you would likely face severe social consequences. You might be divorced or shunned.
But the perfectionist is often more abusive to themselves than to anyone they love.
Far more. They give themselves a level of constant aggressive criticism that they would never, ever tolerate from an outside source. Inside that, that secret internal world where their core self lives, it is often pretty horrific.
And that's the engine. That abuse is the engine driving the need for external validation.
That's the engine.
Okay, so this is where I think the confusion usually shits, especially for high performers listening to this. How do we cleanly distinguish this toxic perfectionism from healthy ambition, from the drive to be great that society rewards?
This is the crucial distinction. We're not saying achievement itself is bad. What is often mislabeled as adaptive perfectionism is actually a completely different psychological construct that we call excellencism, right? It's just the striving for high standards, conscientiousness, iterative improvement, attaining difficult goals.
So if they both can result in high achievement, what's the mechanical difference?
The difference is the motivation. This is the single clearest way to tell them apart. If the motivation is driven by fear, this desperate need to repair the self, to fix that fundamental feeling of inadequacy.
That's toxic.
That is maladaptive perfectionism.
Right.
But if the motivation is driven by curiosity or passion or mastery or just a desire to push boundaries, that's healthy striving. That's excellencism.
Can you give us a more sort of day-to-day example? Because for a lot of people, I think those lines are totally blurred.
Absolutely. Think of a healthy, striving musician. They practice intensely because they love the craft. They want to master a complex technique. If they miss a note in a performance, they note it, they learn from it, and they move on.
Okay.
The perfectionist musician, on the other hand, practices intensely because if they miss a note, it proves they're a fraud, and their worth just plummets.
So excellencism is process-focused, driven by external standards of quality, while perfectionism is shame-focused, driven by these internal catastrophic standards of self-worth.
You've got it. And this confusion is made worse because perfectionistic people fundamentally fuse their identity and their performance.
If I do well, I am good.
Right. And if I fail, I am fundamentally a bad person. That fusion is so dangerous. And the sources talk about the resilience you find in true high performers like Olympians who maintain that distinction.
They can separate what they do from who they are.
That's the key to resilience. The true high performer can fail 2 games in the World Series, but they can still maintain that distinction. This is what I did, but who I am, my being, still has worth. That's what lets them recover and learn.
The perfectionist just sees it as confirmation of their unworthiness.
Total confirmation.
Yeah.
And this idea of a split identity becomes so real here. You have the successful public persona, the Mr. Williamson who gets the accolades.
But that's just a decoy.
It's a decoy to hide the core self, the Chris, who still feels inherently awful or fundamentally broken. The achievement becomes this highly effective mask. But that core self remains completely untouched by the external success.
And that brings us to the critical paradox.
It does.
Which is, does all of that hard-won achievement, the CEO title, the A+, the published book, does any of it actually relieve the feeling of perfectionism?
And the answer, which is often just devastating for the person living it, is a stark
no.
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 Achievement is the fantasy used to solve the problem of worth, but it is fundamentally the wrong tool. The feeling of inadequacy is relational and developmental. It's not performance-based.
It's like trying to fix a broken relationship with a new car. The tool just doesn't match the problem.
Precisely. And what we see is this devastating confirmation cycle. When success happens, it's never enough. It doesn't touch that underlying belief of being unacceptable. A person feels no lasting satisfaction, no celebration, and their default response is just to up the ante for the next project.
And if they fail?
Failure just confirms the initial inadequacy. So even success is often experienced as a type of failure because the core problem, that internal sense of worth, it remains stubbornly unsolved.
There was that powerful anecdote about the suicidal university student.
Yes, in a particularly challenging program.
Yeah.
He desperately chased the highest score in a definitive course, and he got it. An A+, highest mark in the entire class. But when he came to therapy, he was more depressed.
Why? I mean, that seems completely counterintuitive.
Because the achievement only illustrated to him that he had to work so incredibly hard to get it. Which in his mind just confirmed his deep lack of inherent capability. He weaponized his own extraordinary effort against his self-worth. It's a completely self-perpetuating, corrosive cycle.
And the data actually undermines the idea that perfectionism is a good engine for performance.
It absolutely does. We sometimes buy into this myth, that you need to be a perfectionist to succeed. But the studies show the opposite is true. Yeah, perfectionistic individuals actually have lower income and commission-based careers.
Yeah.
And less productivity, fewer publications for professors, because the crippling fear, the over-editing, the paralysis, it just gets in the way.
Okay, so we've covered the self-driven inner critic. How does this trait start to affect our relationships? I know the research identifies 3 distinct levels.
That's right. And these 3 trait levels, they often intertwine. First, you have self-oriented perfectionism. I need me to be perfect. That's the autonomous, inner-driven need we've been talking about.
Okay.
Second is other-oriented perfectionism. I need you, my spouse, my kids, my colleagues to be perfect.
Right.
And third is socially prescribed perfectionism. This is the perception, often internalized from early on, that other people require me to be perfect for me to be acceptable.
That socially prescribed one must be absolutely exhausting, just constantly trying to meet these impossible external demands that might not even be real.
It creates a state of chronic vigilance. And to cope, perfectionists tend to use 2 primary interpersonal behaviors to manage the appearance of perfection.
Okay, what are they?
One is promotion actively telling others how wonderful or capable they are, essentially selling that flawless image.
And the other must be the avoidance strategy.
Yes, concealment. This involves never displaying or disclosing any imperfection. It's why many perfectionists dread public speaking, not because of the crowd, but because they fear a momentary stumble that reveals a flaw.
They avoid talking about setbacks.
Exactly, which creates all this distance from other people.
Let's go back to that other-oriented perfectionism for a second. That sounds so destructive for any real relationship, especially the link you mentioned to narcissistic traits.
It is destructive, because the drive is often to borrow status or identity. The thinking is, if I need my spouse to be flawless, it's because I can share in their perfection and it elevates me.
They're not seeing the other person as an individual.
Not at all. They're seeing them as an extension of their own need for perfection. And the consequence, when that person inevitably falls short, it triggers this harsh, critical rejection, sometimes described as narcissistic rage, because the other person has threatened the perfectionist's own fragile sense of worth.
It all boils down to this cruel social paradox, then. The deep drive is to connect with others to solve that worth issue. But their rigid behaviors, being critical, distant, constantly curating an image, they actively push people away.
That is the tragedy of it. It results in deep disconnection, isolation, and profound loneliness, which then just further confirms their initial belief of being fundamentally defective.
And we have to emphasize the gravity here. This isn't just about feeling bad.
Not at all. It's severely comorbid with anxiety, depression, eating disorders, relationship failure, and this is the most crucial, life-threatening data point.
Go on.
Both self-oriented and socially prescribed perfectionism are associated with severe physical health consequences, including early death.
Wow.
And they predict suicide risk, even when you control for pre-existing depression and hopelessness. It is a truly deadly personality style.
So given that severity, seeking help is the logical next step. But I imagine admitting you need help feels like admitting the ultimate failure.
It's the ultimate reveal of imperfection. It's terrifying. I recall this example of a professional classical musician who was in deep emotional distress. He carried a therapist's article about perfectionism in his wallet for 6 months, reading it, knowing he needed help, but he only sought treatment after a failed suicide attempt, when his family forced him.
So once someone finally crosses that threshold, what is the goal of treatment? Is it just learning to relax their standard?
No. The goal of effective treatment is not to reduce the perfectionism itself. We don't want them to stop caring about their work. It's to deal with the deeper issues of worth, belongingness, and connectedness.
So you focus on the cause, not the symptom.
Exactly. The psychodynamic approach focuses on the cause, those unmet relational needs, not just the pain or the driving behavior. And the shift is from intellectual knowledge to embodied relational experience.
So not just worksheets.
Right. Intellectual knowledge can teach you about your trauma, but it doesn't change the underlying structure of the self. This is where the bicycle metaphor is so helpful.
Right.
You cannot learn to ride a bicycle from a lecture or a workbook. You need the experience of being supported, of falling off, of not being shamed for falling and getting back up and trying again.
All within a safe context.
All within a safe context. So the therapeutic relationship itself becomes the healing mechanism. It's a safe place where the perfectionist can finally put their flawed self on the table and find acceptance.
And that experiential support is what actually changes those deep-seated traits.
That's what the evidence suggests. Research confirms that those traits, particularly socially prescribed perfectionism, don't seem to change robustly with just symptom-focused techniques, but psychodynamic changes. They tend to be maintained and even continue to grow after treatment ends.
Because you've actually fixed the root cause.
You fix the root cause, allowing the healing process to continue on its own.
That is a phenomenal distinction. So to wrap this up, what we understand now is that toxic perfectionism is fueled by this desperate, shame-driven need to repair a core sense of inadequacy.
While healthy excellence is fueled by a desire for mastery and pushing boundaries.
And we have to note the contemporary relevance here. These traits are reportedly increasing in recent decades.
Which suggests the pursuit of external achievement is coming at an immense, often unrecognized mental cost. The alternative path is about developing new internal ways of cultivating worth and connectedness, rather than chasing that endless, unattainable external goal.
Right. And recall that idea we discussed. If you lived in the mind of that extreme high achiever driven by perfectionism, you probably wouldn't like it very much.
Not at all.
Peak performance achieved at the expense of internal peace.
So here's a final provocative thought for you to carry with you. Imagine placing yourself on your deathbed, say 50 years from now. What would you regret more? Spending another day at the office, striving for that external, ephemeral perfection, or failing to cultivate deep, genuine connection and acceptance with loved ones and, maybe most importantly, with yourself? That choice truly defines the ultimate cost of perfectionism.